Hello, this is a quick video tutorial I wanted to make because I was looking at a video from Gubert and Hobbies where he kind of went over the process of how do you plan a color scheme for your miniatures, and he was going over like using Photoshop and stuff. And the thing is, I was thinking while he was explaining this, if you're working with like 3D printed minis like one-page rules and stuff like that, you have the 3D models, you can preview them in 3D. So I wanted to show a quick tutorial like for someone that has never used Blender, how to go about and do this. So what you do is, as soon as you open Blender, default scene, I'm not using anything weird, you can press X and delete the default cube. You are not going to need it, and it's also a tradition. And then you import STL or whichever format you have the object, and go to downloads. Like I have these STLs from One Page Rule that they gave for free for Halloween. So I'm going to pick one of the Plaguelings. It's going to take a while because these are very heavy models, and as you can see, if you scroll out, the model is quite big and is like off-centered. So the first thing you need to do is put it in the center of the scene. So right click on it, and here where it says set origin, click on origin to geometry. That makes it so the pivot point is in the center, so it doesn't go around weirdly, because it's put that way so when you print it, it's in the right facing, but you don't need that for this test. And now it's way too big. So what you can do is, if you press N or you click on the arrow here in the corner, like you'll see this arrow here, you have this, and you will see that it's very big. It's like 33 meters wide, and you have also the rotations and everything here, so you can work around. A quick tip: if you press and drag, you can alter all the options at the same time. Let's scale it to 0.1, like that's big enough. And then I'm going to do the same for the location and move it to the center of the scene. Okay, that's better. And now we need to rotate it a little bit. So these are the axes. Red is X, green is Y, and up and down are blue or Z. So in this case, I just need to rotate him on the X by 90 degrees. And if you want, you can just move and just place it a little bit above. And there you have it. You have your model in a more or less right place and with the right thing. And if we switch to 3D view, you use this dot here is light, so we can move it around. And by the way, I'm rotating the camera with the mouse wheel with the middle button. You can place the light wherever you want it to be. I recommend, I know that I'm talking a little bit about advanced stuff, but I'm just telling you how to do it for this tutorial. Click on this light bulb icon when you have the light. It will only show when you have the light selected. Change the light to sun, and then change the strength to something like 3. That will give you a more controlled lighting, and then you can, if you want, you can rotate the light here with the same way you rotated the control. I'm using this panel because I find it more comfortable, but if you want, you can have the rotate tool here, sorry, and you can rotate it in the same way. For me, it's way more comfortable to do it with this panel. Once you have the light more or less how you want to have the global light for your model, this is the easy step. So I'm going to go back to select so I don't see the gizmo here, and click here in the tab that says shading. I recommend that you also click on the icon for render here in the viewport shading, so you see what you're working on. And you see this, the model, and now click on add a new material. You can rename this if you're going to try different colors. You can rename them. Let's play it. I'm going to call this red because we're going to start trying with red. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is this whole thing with a lot of options. You don't need it. So delete it, and that's it. the first step. So you see that this menu appears a lot of, you can summon it with Shift A, but if you don't want to learn the shortcuts, you can click here in Add. So the first thing we are going to need is shader, emission, and you connect. Basically, you'll see that in this editor, all the nodes have like inputs on the left and the right. The right are the outputs, the left are the inputs. So what you do is you drag from one and the other, and you have that. So right now we are not seeing anything, but don't worry, we know what we are doing. So the first thing we need to do is we add a shader, and we're going to add a diffuse VSDF. And for now, I'm going to explain it in a bit, but for now put this value to put 0.5, and then go to Add, Converter, Shader to RGB, and connect it here, and then connect it here. So now this looks great. You're like, okay, it looks back as how it was looking at the beginning. And now, trust the process. So what I just did is that you can select several of the nodes and you can press G, that is to move, or you can just drag and drop. It's a matter of what's more comfortable for you. We are not here to teach you Blender, we are just here to teach you how to plan for color schemes. So now that we have this, why did I told you this roughness value to put it to 0.5? The roughness is how shiny a material is. So if you're planning on painting something that's going to be a bit metallic, you want to put it a bit to the top. If you're going to paint something like skin or something like that, you just lower it as close to the bottom as you want. I recommend for normal, just put it in 0.5. And now let's add converter color ramp. Okay, and this is where you can start having fun. The way this color ramp does is that it takes the values from here and you can change the colors depending on the darkness of the color. So let's say we wanted to paint this red. So just click on the box here, you have this menu open, and you can select a red. Let's say maybe this red. And then for the lights, we can say let's go to a yellow, because that's what I usually use for highlights for the red. And if you want to add steps to your paint job, let's say you want to add a mid color, you click on the plus icon, click again and say no, this is going to be more reddish. Okay, this is looking cool. And let's say now I want to add a mid highlight. So add plus again, put it in the right place, and now I'm going to make it a bit orangish, and move it there. So this is how the mini looks like with perfect blending. Let's say you're really good at blending, but what if you want to see how it would look like with no blending? So that's easy. The only thing you need to do is change here where it says linear to constant. And now it's looking a bit weird, but we can readjust. It's like, okay, the shadows are taking too much space. Let's move them a little bit there. And let's move the mid highlight there. And then let's move the top highlights there. And now this is giving you a look of how it would look with basically sorry, a cool highlight. But what if you want to see how it would look like, okay, if I paint like this, but I also use a shade? That's easy to do. So first thing you have to do is click on this camera where it says render properties and enable ambient occlusion. That's all you need to do. So now what we can do is, I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit, and we can add here in color a mix color. If you move a node that you are creating in a line, it will connect it automatically. So I'm saying, okay, the first color is going to be the color that is coming, that I decide for my color scheme. Cool. And now I'm going to add an input ambient occlusion. Okay. Now that I have my input, I just move it here to the factor, and it's looking really weird. But don't worry about it. So now the next thing we need to add is a converter color ramp. And we are going to switch them around. Okay, so now this white value is going to be the darkest recesses of the miniature. Okay, so that way you can decide, okay, that more or less looks how a shade will look like. Maybe needs to go a little bit upper, something like that maybe. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to use, let's say, Agrax. So I'm going to make this a, a dark brown, like a very dark brown. And there you have it, your color scheme with shading and with as many layers of paint as you want. So let's say, okay, I want to switch this, I want to have multiple textures, like have like two different, I want to try to switch around. So one quick way of doing it is you can come here and you see add new material, the one that has the two, like the two papers, the two pages, one on top of each other, and it will create a duplicate of that texture. So let's say we call this blue, because we want to see how it will look blue. So I go here and I say, okay, sorry, I'm going to try this kind of like purple for the shadows. The mid-tone is going to be like this macrash blue. The highlight is going to be like this, more like vivid, and I'm going to use like something like a grayish for the blue. And then for the shade, I'm going to use like a Dragonhof nightshade, something like that. A little bit more blue, there. And there you have it. And then if you want to switch back to red, the only thing you need to do is click on this one and go back to red. And you can quickly see how your model is going to look depending on the color and the like shade, the shadows and everything. And the cool thing about this is that you can now, if we go back to layout, you can play around with the light and say, okay, what if I want the light to come a little bit more from the front? So you go to rotate, and it even allows you to plan around where you want to place your lights and shades. Like you can rotate the light around it. For example, this way you can see how it will look in the back. And it can also help you to see a lot of like details that you maybe have not spotted. Sorry, my English is failing me today, I don't know why. But yeah, that's, as I say, for 3D people that know how to work with Blender, this is super easy, but I imagine that most people don't know how to work with Blender. But the cool thing is Blender is a free software. You can get it from free, and you can, and if you already have the 3D models, you can just, while you're waiting for them to print, load them into Blender, go into shading, and start playing with colors, and you can create as many different textures as you want, and try as many colors as you want. Try like move stuff around to see, okay, I'm going to make the shadows a little bit smaller, and maybe add another mid-tone because I want to have some color chromatic variations, like something like that. And again, if you want to switch back to how it will look like nicely blended, where it says constant, you change it to is, and now you again can play around with the colors and hide where you want it. And as I was saying, if you want to paint it more metallic, you increase the roughness and you will see that the highlights get a little bit more intense. If I lower the roughness, they soften a little bit. If you want to paint something like, I'm going to show why I usually use Blender for this, because it's super versatile. If you want to try to paint something like no metal, right? Like NMM, you change this diffuse, let's just delete it, and let's add a shader glossy. This is like a very, very metallic color. You connect it, And there you have it. And you can make it like less shiny, like it's an old dual metal, or you can make it like super reflective. And then you can start playing around. Let's say you want to paint it like iron, you can just go like really dark for the shade, and there you start playing around with the colors until you find something that looks really cool for you. Let's switch it a little bit to here, maybe a bit darker. And then the highlights, almost pure white. And there you have how it would look like a non-metallic metallic. Which, if you go back to constant, can give you like a rough paint map of where you want to place each layer. You can move around different pieces and play around with this result. But that's why I think it's a cool trick to know, because you can have different tests, see how it will look like, and make up your mind, since you already have the 3D models. So yeah, I hope you like this little tip and might get you interested in Blender. It's a really fun software, and if you're doing mini 3D printing, it's probably worth it, taking an interest, because it can help you change models and stuff. So yeah, hope you like the video and have a nice day. Bye bye.